but we'll go right into panel number 2, which is called Removing Roadblocks to Safety, Human-Animal Co-Living Enhances Shelter Access and Healing. And the moderator for this panel will be Jennifer White-Reed, Chief of Staff to Senior Advisor to the CEO at URI.
Good morning, everyone. I see everyone catching up with each other. Lots of connections and networking happening. As we get situated, and if I could just get some silence in the room, thank you. Following the earlier theme about the 1980s, I will say I'm definitely an 80s baby. Just look at me. So, good morning. We're still in the good morning phase, right? Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jennifer White-Reed. I'm the Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor to the CEO at URI. And as our chair, Whitaker Mack, mentioned earlier, I've been with the organization for a little over 20 years. And I can still vividly remember my reaction when our CEO, Nat Fields, as I look at my boss, proposed the idea of people and animals living together in shelter to me. I was overseeing our domestic violence residential and legal programs at the time, and I recall thinking, we live in New York City, the greatest city in the world, right? But no New York City shelter openly welcomed families with pets. And our state regulations that govern shelter were silent on the issue. And I thought, his idea, is this even possible? I also thought, is this our work, right? We were in human services, providing support to and temporary services to survivors of domestic violence and homeless families, and we're not animal welfare advocates. But Nat had learned of some new research that said that some survivors would not even consider coming into shelter, and they would remain in a dangerous situation if they could not bring their pets with them. And URI's work has always been centered around removing barriers. It's been centered around looking at ways to make it easier for survivors of domestic violence and homeless families to access services, be safe, get resources. And so I could see that our CEO was committed to removing this barrier. And I could see that this type of innovative thinking was needed to push the field forward and to save more lives. So now PALS has been around for 10 years. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary. Thank you. We expanded from one 10-unit, one-building project, pilot program, to soon to having 10 pet-inclusive shelters offering 400 units. The program has served over 500 families with 700 pets, all different varieties. And what I'm very proud to say is that in 2020, the state regulations that were once silent were amended to explicitly allow families with pets to come in and live together in emergency domestic violence shelters. So in the past 10 years, I have seen a profound impact that animals have had on the journey of survivors. And today, I, along with many others, can so clearly see that helping pets helps families, right? It helps families to heal, it helps them to access services, and it helps them to be safe. But rather than talk about it, I want to show you. Several years ago, Urban Resource Institute, and I won't forget about the folks over here, Urban Resource Institute, we developed a short video called When I Close My Eyes. And the video depicts a typical situation with a family with pets experiencing domestic violence, and I think it's important to show to you today. Now, I will say, while it does not depict actual violence, it does imply physical and verbal violence. You will hear sounds of shouting, and you will hear sounds associated with physical and verbal abuse. If you would like to step away and step away from the video for 5 minutes, you may do so now, you should do so now, and it will call you back in 5 minutes after the video is completed.
This is what I'm talking about. Why are you running? I'm speaking to you. I'm not running. I just don't want to argue in front of our... Well, see, listen, it don't matter where we argue, we run. It matters.
Sometimes when things get scary, I try to escape the only way I know how. I close my eyes.
Do everything for you. See? I'm speaking to you. Get that?
When I close my eyes, I'm somewhere else. A place where I don't have to be afraid. And Benny has all the space in the world. And we're safe. No matter how brave my mom appears, I know that she's scared. She deserves a safe place too. But most of the time, being home feels dangerous. And some nights, the shouting seems endless. It doesn't feel like home at all. I try to stay close in case she needs me, but I have to be careful. She doesn't like me to see certain things. But one day, something changed. We both would have to leave some things behind.
You'll see him again, it's okay.
My mom began to show me that things can change for the better, but that it wouldn't always feel good, and that it wouldn't always be easy. I didn't know where we were going, but I know why we had to leave. It didn't feel right leaving Benny behind, but I trusted my mom. She taught me that new doesn't have to be scary, and we wouldn't have to do it alone. And that there was a safe place for Benny too.
We're gonna get you in a good spot to find a more permanent home.
I haven't gotten a chance to work in like the past 5 years.
Usually go over your previous work experience, right? And then you wanna focus on your strong skills. So if you wanna think about your past jobs, where you felt confident in.
Okay.
Okay.
I know how to prioritize.
Slowly, I saw my mom change.
Great by myself.
We're here to make your interviewing process as smooth as possible.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
And eventually, I felt myself change. My mom looked different now, and our home started to look different too. We didn't know what was ahead of us, but we were together. She says a new beginning will lead to new memories. And although we didn't always get it right, she reminded me that there's always room for sorries. And growth, and celebration. It's been a long time since I saw my mom like that. Things are brighter now. And although I still close my eyes every once in a while, it's not out of fear anymore. I know I'm safe, and she is too.
Every time I watch this video, I get goosebumps. It really is impactful. And for those who stepped out, they can return back into the room. I know it's hard to watch for some of you, but by watching this video, I hope that you get a feel, if you don't already know, of how important this issue is and how important the work is. So we have pulled together an impressive lineup of panelists today to dive a little deeper into this topic. The panelists are Danielle Emery, Director of URI's People and Animals Living Safely program, Hope Dawson-Sessions, yes, Danielle, Hope Dawson-Sessions, survivor and founder of One Victory Designs, Professor Catherine Competus, Clinical Assistant Professor and Director of Animal Assisted Interventions, Postmaster's Program at NYU. Farrah Lewis, New York City Council member and co-chair of the Women's Caucus. So good to see you. Jocelyn Carter, Agency Administrator for the New York City Department of Homeless Services. And last but not least, Christine Kim, founder and board member of My Dog is My Home. So thank you all for your work and for joining us here today. I'm going to pose a series of questions to the panelists that are designed to spark a lively discussion and help us navigate this topic. We have less than an hour, and they put us right before lunch, so we'll see how we do. As you've heard earlier, there are note cards on the table, and so if you have questions, look for the panelists during lunchtime and also fill out the note card with your questions, and we will certainly respond. So let's begin. Panelists, I will direct these questions to a particular panelist. However, if anyone feels free to, you can feel free to weigh in at any point. Danielle, you've been the director of our PALS program for a little over 5 years. What do you think PALS' biggest impact has been? And can you talk with us a little bit about the research that URI conducted in 2019 alongside the National Domestic Violence Hotline on pets and gender-based violence?
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Danielle Emery, the Director of the People and Animals Living Safely program here at URI. I first wanted to just acknowledge and honor those with lived experience who have shared this morning, who will share, or those of us who were drawn to this work or helping survivors as advocates or assisting in shelter in all different capacities because of our lived experience. Especially want to thank those who do work for crisis hotlines and my shelter colleagues, because I know this work is draining, and really, really grateful for our collaboration and all the work that we do together. So, biggest impact of the PALS program. Jennifer shared about our numbers. It's incredible what we've been able to do over these first 10 years of the program. We are far and away the largest provider of services for survivors with pets in the country. We're doing this at a scale and scope that nobody else is. And so to me, the biggest impact is showing that it can be done successfully, and the ability of our survivors to stay together with their pets, the contribution that has to their healing and to their ongoing ability, resiliency, and ways to seek security and stability. It's really phenomenal. So I continue to want to advocate for other service providers to develop pet-inclusive services for both domestic violence and homeless shelters to become more pet-inclusive. What that means, it doesn't always mean starting with 10 shelters and 400 units, absolutely not. It's starting where URI did, where we were comfortable, what made sense for us at that moment, which was starting in one shelter location with 10 units and then growing as our capacity expanded. I also think the beauty or a lot of the power of this work is, most people, not everyone, so it's okay if you don't, but most people love animals, have a fondness, I always ask how many people have pets, how many people have connections to animals in their lives. And people get very excited to talk about their pets, to learn about programs that include pets. So they want to hear about this program. They want to hear, the success stories of animals. And I think one of the biggest impacts and privileges of getting to speak about this program is opening up the audience of people that we get to talk to about domestic violence and about the needs of survivors. So we are able to go into the animal welfare communities and really advocate and do training and draw attention to the needs of survivors that also include pets. So I think that has been an enormous impact of the program. Also being a social services agency that has stepped up and said, animals are a part of the family. They should be included in services, including shelter, and we want to help lead the way in that effort in the city and nationally. There aren't other social services providers that are really stepping up to do that work in a really committed way. And so the fact that that URI has done that we started with the vision of NAT 10 years ago and have grown into this program and where we're at now, it's special. I say this to my colleagues at URI all the time. It seems like, we talk about pals and pets are in shelter, and it's so normalized for us, but it really is a unique program, and more places in the country and across the world, need to provide these services for survivors. So just very briefly so we were able to conduct a study in partnership with the National Domestic Violence Hotline in 2019. So the research that Jennifer had cited, around 50% of people not saying they wouldn't leave an abusive situation if they couldn't bring their pets. That was research that was done early in the early 2000s that was specifically done with folks who had already entered shelter. So we wanted to do a survey of folks who were seeking safety, who were seeking services. So we partnered with the hotline and were able to collect data from over 2,000 individuals who either called, chatted, got in touch with the hotline in some way, and said that they had pets. And what we found is out of that population, it was still more than 50% said they would not leave an abusive situation if they could not take their pet with them. 86% said that their pet was important in providing emotional support, and so that's why they needed to stay together, because they needed that emotional support and healing for being able to leave that abusive situation. And 72% of folks said that they were not aware that there were any programs across the country or in their areas that would accept pets or help or provide services for them with their pets. And so our takeaways from that study were really just that we need to continue to advocate for these programs, advocate for funding, do more promotion, do the marketing, continue to raise this issue in conversations such as these, and also take the little steps of, asking survivors directly if they have pets, if they need services with their pets, and working to grow those resources in all of our communities. So lots of work and lots of success to be celebrated, but also more for us to do, and really happy to be here today with others to talk a little bit more about what's ahead of us.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you for your leadership, and I think about the work that you've done over the past few years in the progress of the program and taking it to a place where we never even imagined 10 years ago. So thank you for that. Also, I know having the voices of survivors was important in shaping the program. So as I turn to Hope, it's so good to see you. We've known each other for a while now. Thank you for being here today. Can you talk to us about the impact of the PALS program on your healing journey and the meaning we always refer to, our tagline is stay together, heal together. Can you speak to perhaps how it relates to your journey?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much. I'm like giddy right now because I'm so happy to see you, Jennifer and Nat and Danielle, just everybody. Oh my gosh. So, hi. And as always, I do want to thank you all. I, as publicly as I can speak about the impact that not only just URI as the organization has had on my life, but you all individually and how you just were able to see me and see things in me that I wasn't able to see in myself, which has helped me to develop beyond the shelter. I just continue to just pay homage and say thanks to you all so much for that. And for even trusting me to be in this space and share my story again to, hopefully spread the message and represent the survivor story well. So thank you all so much. Normally Coco was with me. I wish she was here. She would say it so much better than I could. Coco is my dog. Well, I was going to say I have my husband instead, but he's not a dog. He's amazing. He's a handsome king. I love you, dear. But no, Coco's not with me. She actually has gone on to college, which, when my daughter, Coco graduated, she went to college. No, literally though, she is. When my daughter graduated and I'm married now, I have my husband to, be with me as a partner. My daughter was having some emotional anxiety and things of that nature, being away from home. And so Coco's now with her. And she's learning some things at college, like shade. So she has a new alter ego, Coco Sade. But no, I wish she was here. But so she is absolutely a part of our family more than I can even express sometimes. And a lot of times I kind of go back to just saying like, hey, if you know, you know. But when I think about finding the words, first of all, I'll just go back a little bit into my story, not too much, but excuse me. I'm gonna drink a little water. But okay. But going back into my story just a little bit, Coco was a baby when our life really transitioned. She had just been spayed, and we thought she was just healing, but we didn't know she was really, really sick. Like, they didn't know she had distemper or what was happening with her. She would survive. And around that time is where everything in the tumultuous relationship that I was in really heightened. And just a little side note almost, every time I come to a URI event, I learn something new about abuse. Like, I did not know about coerced debt. And that is something that I experienced and didn't even know it. So, I mean, this is not a side note as far as like anything that's on the back burner, but you are really educating even the survivors about what, you know what I'm saying, the story is and what they've survived. But so thank you. I want to put that in there. But Coco was sick, and at the height of my situation, which started off as a friendship very innocently, and you don't know it's coming. You think, oh, he's a little controlling because, I'm the bomb. But I probably just dated myself. People don't even say the bomb anymore. But anyway, here we are. Oh, man. But I was like, yeah, it's a little controlling, but hey, I'm me. But at the end of the day, that continues, and it grows and it grows, and it turns to yelling and things that are very toxic, and it shows itself in a number of ways that I'm even today still understanding. But what happened when we needed to transition from where we were living to coming here was it had turned into like vandalism of my property, of our home, of these things, to where it just wasn't safe for us to be there anymore. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because when these things happened, when he would break in and damage things, and we wouldn't be home, but Coco was. And she was sick. And there was nothing she could do to protect us, to protect the house, and just instinctively, that's in our nature. She wasn't able to. And so after we left, I'll just fast forward a bit, she started to get more aggressive. She was with the kids. I was here. I was living out of my car. I was trying to figure out, and I just literally woke up one day and heard just a voice in my head to say, go to New York. I didn't know why, and I was like, that's crazy. I don't want to go there. No, I mean, it just was very expensive. It was just something that I felt was out of my reach, and I didn't understand why in my situation I would be, in my head, have the thought to come to New York. But either way, I listened, I came, I was separated from Coco and the kids, and she was with them. So as she started to heal, it was in some ways good for us because we were able to, be so happy for her, like, okay, and it distracted us from the shift we were in, the transition. But as she got stronger, she was like, now I can say something. I can do something about, whatever happens. And so she was very aggressive to anyone who even like spoke to the kids or just glanced over, at them. She was just became aggressive. And we didn't understand, why necessarily, because we didn't speak fluent Coco at that point. Now I'm I'm bilingual in that way. I can tell you exactly what she's thinking. But at the time, we really didn't know. And so, she was there with the kids, and I said, okay. At a certain point, I was like, I have to get them. This is just, it's too much to be separated, from everyone. So I brought them here, and through the Mayor's Alliance, where I was trying to find boarding for Coco, because I was like, there's no way that I'm going to consider now that we've lost literally everything that we're going to separate from Coco too. Like, that would have just been too much, And so my daughter even told me, she's like, if we have to sleep in a car with you, I don't care. We just need to be there. And so I didn't know what was going to happen. We stayed in a hotel for a couple of nights. I brought them here. And then I said, you know what? We're going to just go to PASS, because I'd heard about PASS. Coco was being boarded with the Mayor's Alliance for 30 days. And we went through the PASS system and everything. And then through the Mayor's Alliance, they told us about URI. There wasn't the hotline at that point, or the survey that you all did, so there wasn't any option really for me to say that Coco was with me. So, and when I tried to speak about it, it was like, that doesn't matter. We don't deal with that. It wasn't a thing that they were even considering Coco. They were like, if you can't find a place to stay in 30 days, then, we'll find somewhere else to, she can be adopted by another family that can, have her if you're in the shelter system. And I don't know, you all live here in New York. Who can find a place in 30 days? That was like an impossible feat. Like, you're basically saying that, Coco can't be with us. But thankfully, URI had a space come available that was just my family size, and we were able to go there. And I tell you, from day one, Miss Ann, oh my God, I love Miss Ann. She's the sweetest person I've ever known. But she had Coco literally eating out the palm of her hand. And I had not seen her interact with, like, anyone, because she was so protective. And when the first day we were at URI, there was, Miss Ann was with the PALS program at that point. And she met us, and she had Coco eating out of her hand, and we were like, teach us your ways, And she did. There was so much information that we got as far as how to even retrain Coco and teach her how to be able to be in society, as we were learning with the other programs that were available, how to re-enter society. And so when it comes to the PALS program and their importance in my story, I think it's just one of those things. I said all that, and now I still want to say, if you know, you know. But it's just one of those things where I can't, and here's the other part to it. There was no other shelter in the country that would have taken us with Coco. So when that voice told me, come to New York, I, in my mind and heart, believe that was just divine, intervention, sending me to a space where exactly what I needed was there, and I didn't even know it. And it came in the most unsuspected way of the shelter, where I would meet these beautiful people, and it would literally change the trajectory of my life for the better. And so, again, I don't know if I answered your question. I think I did, but I want to thank you all once again, just for being who you are in our lives, and helping us to, really gain our footing back, and also move forward after we, were able to leave the shelter. Thank you.
Thank you, Hope. Thank you for your courage and your honesty, and you're an inspiration to me and to many of those in the room today. So thank you.
Just wanted, Mr. McCrae is here also. I don't know if you saw him.
I didn't see him. Hi, Mr. McCrae. He was over, so the location where I was, Mr. McCrae was over it. He was like the head man in charge. Before I met Nat, obviously. But no, I'm kidding. Yes, Mr. McCrae.
Well, thank you, Hope. So I'm going to transition to Professor Competus. Your research focuses heavily on trauma studies, specifically on the human-animal bond, with a focus on the disproportionate systemic oppression of people of color. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've learned about the impact that the human-animal bond has on trauma recovery?
Absolutely. So to start off, to add on to what Danielle was saying, not only are people not leaving abuse situations because of they don't want to leave their pet behind, but about 80% of the abusers are harming the animals as well. So this is an animal welfare issue as well as a human welfare issue. And we do conveniently forget sometimes that humans are a species of animals. So we are all very much intertwined. And also people tend to see that about 32% of children that are in these situations also start to hurt the animals because they see this adult doing it. So this perpetrates a cycle of violence, right? But once somebody is able to get out, one of the reasons it is so vitally important to keep people with their pets are pets, regardless of species. It could be a dog, it could be a bunny, but they provide us with a sense of unconditional love and non-judgment that we simply don't get from other humans. I don't care if it's your parent or your child. I like to say that, my husband loves me tons, but, my dogs don't ask me to wash the dishes, right? But they always are happy to see you when you come home, right? Also, some species, like dogs, provide a sense of physical comfort and security. So when somebody does get out of that situation, they certainly will feel more on edge. PTSD symptoms, some of them are this hypervigilance, right? And being terrified that something else might happen at any moment. Well, the animals, they have a better sense of smell, a better sense of hearing, so they can alert us when somebody else that is dangerous is coming near. I've seen people who have PTSD who are finally able to sleep when they have a pet in the house because that animal is watching out for them. Sleeping is a vulnerable position. We also know there are various ways it helps, biologically, psychologically, and socially. In terms of social, an abuser can keep people in social isolation. They like to keep people away from their families, right? Because they can't keep harming this person if they are relying on others. So they need to isolate them. So for a lot of people, this animal is their only source of support. Physical comfort often as well. Biologically, and socially, when reintegrating into society, animals, we call them a social lubricant because they help people connect with other people, right? So you can walk your dog down the street. If somebody comes up to you without a dog, without a pet, and they say, hey, what's your name? How old are you? You're going to be like, what is wrong with you, right? But if they come up to you and say, hey, what's your dog's name? How old is your dog? Oh, okay. And you start talking, you become neighbors, or, you connect on that level. They say that cat pictures exploded online during COVID, right? Because people were just sharing these feel-good pictures and videos, and they do make us feel good. Biologically, our oxytocin levels, which is the love hormone, it bonds us to mother to child, romantic partners, it bonds us to our pets too. So we feel good when we are around animals. Biologically, we feel good when we are separated from them. It hurts. It physically hurts because we go through oxytocin withdrawal. Our cortisol, stress hormone levels lower when we are petting an animal. It doesn't matter what kind, bunny, cat, dog, whatever. So there are biological reasons why it helps and how it can help trauma survivors. And then certainly psychologically, like I said, we could, a source of unconditional love, non-judgment, support. They help us learn resilience. They help us learn mindfulness, how to be in the moment, right? And they help us just accept ourselves for who we are and who we want to become, right? And so there are a variety of ways that they help us. And certainly there's a lot of research that PTSD survivors and trauma survivors do very much benefit from spending time with animals. And we know these are only enhanced when it is your own pet and you have that established bond. And certainly most people do regard their pet as a family member, our fur babies, right? Mm-hmm. And we wouldn't leave an adoptive child behind. So we cannot expect somebody to leave an adoptive child behind just because they have fur, right?
Thank you for sharing that. Research is so important to highlight a need and also to help transform and make change. And we've certainly utilized research to educate the community, government officials, so people can really understand the importance of this program. So thank you for that. So I transition to Councilmember Lewis. You have been a longtime friend of URI. We are grateful for your support of our families, of our work. And I ask, why is PALS important to you? And why should it be important to others? And lastly, what should government be doing to help encourage the expansion of programs like PALS, even within URI or beyond?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the invite today, Nat, and the whole URI team. I'm Councilmember Lewis, represent the 45th Council District. Anybody here from Flatbush? Okay, Flatbush, Midwood. All right. I had to put that plug in.
Of course, that's fine.
So I'll start with saying this. If there is an organization that has the blueprint and the mission to remove barriers, to create a space that's safe for survivors and their families, it is URI. They have a mission to help families that need temporary housing and also have pets to have a safe space. And the fact that PALS chose District 45 to house one of their institutions has been so beneficial, not only to my district, but to the city. We get calls all the time, people coming from the Bronx and other places around the city that need a safe space, and PALS has been that for constituents around the city. And I think that's very important. When I meet with folks, whether if they're in PALS or may enter PALS or just in general, and they have pets, one thing that they always mention is that pet is their source of comfort. That's their source, it's solace for them. And I often think about their children. Children are experiencing trauma. There's a separation that's happening in the home, and not all the time are parents talking to children about the experience. However, that pet, whatever that pet may be, is that source of solace for the child. And if they have to be removed and extracted from the home with the parent that's experiencing abuse and have to be in temporary shelter, the pet can continue helping them on their healing journey. And that's why PALS is so important to me, to my district, to the city of New York, to the mayor's office. And we want to continue to support URI because they have the model that we need. Does the city of New York have the infrastructure? No. But URI has the model. And that's why I think government could be helpful if the city of New York can work with URI to create that model and create the infrastructure. You have basically the solution to the problem. And that's the direction I'm hoping to go in. The previous panel, I heard from Laura and Andy and a few others that spoke about the bills that we passed. I was a co-prime sponsor for Intro 148 so that we could expand domestic violence to include abusive, economic abuse of cohorts debt, whichever one you want to use. We supported the survivors package. All of the resources that come out this legislation helps with what we need to build the infrastructure to support survivors. The problem is we don't always have the right answers. Government is not always the experts. The experts are you all in this room right now. It's URI, it's your institutions. So if you have a great pitch and you have reports and documents to showcase that you have the answer to the problem, you have the solution, you hand that over to us. We create legislation. You advocate for funding. Don't ask for too much because we're having problems right now. So come to us with that information. And I think if Laura's still in the room, I think even her and her team came to sit with the Women's Caucus to have a conversation about, all right, here's the problem the city of New York has when it comes to providing support services for folks that are experiencing domestic violence. We have a backlog right now in the courts, and these folks need free attorneys to help them through the process. We have the answer. We just need your money. So if you have the answer, you have the solution, and we have the money and we can source it, we would be more than happy on behalf of the Women's Caucus, on behalf of the City Council, to take on that fight with you. Because we would prefer to have a solution than to leave things dormant. That means more people are getting hurt, more people don't have access to resources. So I'm hoping we could continue to partner, URI and the City Council, to provide support services. But PALS has been just so tremendous in helping constituents around the city. And I'm hoping that other organizations can kind of take on your model. And Andy mentioned earlier CLTs, community land trusts. For those that are advocating for community land trusts, you may want to ask for a carve out in that bill package to provide support services or for one of the CLTs to go towards a potential PALS program, so that it can help survivors. So there's ways around this. You just have to be strategic, and we would love to be supportive.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis. We will keep coming to you with solutions and requests for money.
Anytime.
Thank you again for your partnership. So we're going to transition to Administrator Carter. And I want to thank you for being here today. We all know what strain you and your team are currently under trying to respond to the influx of families coming into New York City and into the New York City homeless shelter system. So again, we're grateful for you taking the time today to be with us. We know that survivors of domestic violence will, at some point in our domestic violence shelters, max at a time, right? They run at a time, and many of them will transition to the DHS, Department of Homeless Services shelters. And then we also know that our domestic violence shelters, due to capacity challenges, may not have space, and often the DHS shelter is the first stop for a survivor of domestic violence. And so for those families accessing DHS shelters, they would have to separate from their animals to seek shelter space. And also plenty of homeless families also are pet owners and will have a similar challenge separating from their pets. So you may know that URI issued Paw Print, which is a policy document that is driving PALS expansion beyond domestic violence shelters. And I wanted to hear you share your thoughts on it, as well as to talk a little bit about how the office is addressing the issue.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Thanks, Jennifer, and thank you, Nat. Appreciate all you and Carla do for us and for families experiencing homelessness, domestic violence survivors, and for working with us throughout this time. You all know we're in a perma-crisis, all right? This is permanent. This is not a crisis anymore. So we're using this word, I'm using this word permacrisis because we need to be thinking about kind of what our core services and our core what we should be doing every single day, not just really about what's happening in the city and really what's happening in the United States and all the stuff that's happening in government and in DC and everything else, right? So we're trying to really make sure that we're thinking about New York City and the work here. So, start by telling a story. I have one kid, and I have one dog, so I'm a dog mom, right? And so my kid wanted a dog since he was a baby, and I was completely against that. And I had a sister who conspired behind my back, and her dog had a baby, and this baby ended up in my house. And I'm like, what is this? But guess who the dog fell in love with? And this dog became my dog. And every morning I had to walk this dog before work. And I said to this kid, you after school have to walk this dog. But guess who walked that dog after school? Every single day. And in 2018, my dog passed away. And I'm telling you, I cried like a baby. I bawled. In 2021, my dad died. Did not cry. Right? My dog passed. I woke up in 2019, I said, no more dogs for me, and I woke up saying, I want a dog. I have a new baby, love him to death, and he loves me to death. Positive for COVID, husband handed me a pillow, banned me from the room, and guess who scratched at the door of the office and said, I am going to live with you for these 10 days. And they said, dogs get COVID, and he said, I'll get COVID with your mommy. And he slept behind me on that Chase lounge for those days while I would not get positive. And he was like, that's good, because I'm staying with you. And we had the best time. So, I love my dog as much as I love my husband, and he's like, I think you love him more than me. I would never say some days I do. Because this dog doesn't ask me for anything except to love me. And so, people and animals living together, absolutely a yes. Now I run, DHS, so put that hat on, and we have congregate shelters, we have families with children shelters, now we have sanctuary for asylums, and it's always been, we cannot, right? There's all these bureaucratic and Karen is in the room, I can't do this because, and I can't do this because, but now I'm talking to Nat and you all, and we're thinking about, can we do this? And so I put my social work hat, and can we do this? And so we're thinking about ways of, can we do this, right? So of course I have to think about, right, there's research and there are things that we know by paper and by talking to those who have survived and just kind of my intellectual knowing that this is the right thing to do. But if I had to come into shelter, I am not leaving Skylar, right? I am not doing it. Skylar is my second child, right? I have 2 kids. And so I can't even imagine why I couldn't support expansion of this, right? This is, for me, one of the most important things that need to happen. Families should not have to make that decision, but for now to come to my front door, be it PATH, or be it 30th Street, be it any one of the 2 single adult women's shelters, that is what we have right now. And so we sprung up 40 years ago, and this is what we have, and this is the system that has developed haphazardly, and we're trying to change that system, right? There's a social worker running the system now, and I've been in this seat since 2017. People still don't stay in this seat long, by the way, right? So, for various reasons. But I'm still here, and so I've been trying to think about how can we make this happen, because I do know that, dogs, pets are part of a family, right? Right? Dogs, pets, whatever it is, source of comfort. They meet you at that door, they start barking when you come around the corner. They know that you're coming. Right? They know when I'm feeling anxious. They know when, I am going to have, a medical condition that I have. They know when it's coming. Mm-hmm. And they know that they need to be sitting next to me so I don't hit my head when I fall out. Mm-hmm. Right? So this dog for me this is the person, person, because he's human, right? This is the person that's going to say, make sure that I am okay in times when I'm not. So expanding this is something that I have to make sure that the folks that I work for, I work with, understand why it's important for that to happen. And I don't know how we do that, but it's an everyday thinking about it with the team that I work with for us to think, how can we not support such a thing, right? It's a sense of responsibility that we all have because it does give those who are in situations that is an experience that none of us choose to be in, reasons to live, right? Reasons to really get help for yourself, to get health care, to think about how do I not use substances. This is what animals do for those who are in those situations. Anyone could be in those situations, source of comfort, right? Healing from trauma. We are trying to make sure that our system is now thinking about trauma in a way and how do we work towards putting things in place so that we could address those trauma, right? So we think about our system as people needing us, right? We are the safety net of the safety net. If we're not here, then what would happen? So we have to provide a bed, but I can also think about how do I provide those necessary services for those who need it. Source of companionship, but also a source of companionship in a way that none of us can provide for those who need it. So I'm all for it, it's like, we have to make this happen. Now, if you asked me this 10 years ago, I'm in my 20th year at DHS, right? If you asked me this 10 years ago, I would say, you crazy, absolutely not. But I'm a changed person, and I think my brain has changed, right? I think this dog, or these two dogs I've had, have changed me. Right? It has made me, and Dwayne says, my husband says, who are you? Age, but the dog, right? And so, it is, the experience of having this animal live in my life has changed me and is making me think about how do we change the system. And so, systemic change does take a while. So it's not going to be tomorrow, but it does take a while. And we have to think about who can we start talking to make this type of things happen. So I'm, Jennifer, when you asked me that question, I've been thinking about what can we do? How can we think about that? But I'm certainly, pause, yes. Absolutely yes. There's nothing else I can say, but yes, we support it. Yes, I support it. Yes, we're pushing for that to happen. And, it's one day at a time. But if I can have that opportunity to live with my baby, why not everybody else? Mm-hmm. And I want to be treated, and I want to treat people in a certain way, and that's the way I've lived in my professional career and my personal life. And so I want to be able to give people those opportunities to have that also. So absolutely, yes, that's where I am.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for your partnership, and we will continue to talk. So last but not least, Christine from My Dog is My Home. You work to expand opportunities for people and pets co-living, for families experiencing homelessness regardless of the cause. That is your work. And there are some people who would say, particularly now in the midst of a homelessness crisis, we should focus on just making sure that people have shelter and not pets. Can you talk a little bit about how keeping the family together is important and talk about your work?
Yes, thank you for that question. So I'd like to start out by saying that we at My Dog is My Home actually completely agree that the priority is to shelter and house the people. And that might be like a surprising answer coming from an organization called My Dog is My Home, but I would love to take a moment to explain that. So our organization is called My Dog is My Home, which is a little bit of a misnomer because it makes us sound like we're an animal rescue organization. But we are first and foremost a group of social workers, human services providers, managers of homeless services organizations that banded together about 10 years ago because we were very disturbed at this arbitrary line that was drawn in the sand, that when a person came to us for help and they were accompanied by an animal and they weren't willing to part with that animal, that was the line. Like, I'm sorry, we can't help you either. And so we came together as a group to start this organization to really think about and understand and promote practices in keeping people and animals together. So the reason that why we exist and we continue to work today is that what we think human services providers don't really understand is that in housing people and in that work, sometimes that also means housing the pet with that person. For a really healthy proportion of people experiencing homelessness, they will not go into shelter or housing if their animal is not allowed to come with them. I want to talk about a study that came out of NYU, I believe, a couple scholars from NYU in 2019. It's called If You're Going to Help Me, Help Me. And it's about really looking at the various barriers that people experiencing street homelessness experience in trying to access shelter and housing programs. The top 4 barriers that were identified in that study, where I'm sure many of you in this room can name them off the top of your head, or most of them, they were obtaining those documents that are required for entering a program, identification documents. It was the waiting period and the waiting process for being able to access a shelter. It was also lack of accessibility of shelter amid complex healthcare needs. And then among those top four barriers was the exclusion of pets from shelter. And so that is where we are focusing our effort. And I think that, so yes, there's that proportion of people who just absolutely will not go into shelter or housing if their animals are not allowed with them. But there are some people who do make that decision. And they part from their animals. They either rehome their animals themselves among friends or family or within some other sort of network. Or their animal ends up at the animal shelter, and we really have to ask ourselves why we are forcing them to make that decision when we know that that is a highly traumatic process and that brings them a lot of grief and guilt and shame. And we also know, especially now after 10 years of the PALS program being in place, that it is possible to shelter and house people and animals together safely and effectively. And I think we as human service providers really need to let go of this idea that accepting animals into our programs is going to upend the world and our programs. That's just not the case. It doesn't upend the world, it doesn't ruin your programs, and in fact, it can really enrich the services that you provide. And so with that, I would love to talk about the Providing for Unhoused People with Pets Act. Providing shelter for people and their pets together does not take as much as programs think that it does, because the reality is that if your programs are meeting the bare minimum requirements of the law and you are accepting service animals and emotional support animals, as you are required to do by the Fair Housing Act, then it doesn't take that much more to accommodate pets. The emotional support animals, for example, it can be any household pet, any common household pet, and they do not require any specific type of training. And so really, when you think about it, there isn't that much difference between an emotional support animal and a pet. So it doesn't take that much more. That being said, it doesn't take nothing either. I think the reason why the PALS program is so successful is because that there are dedicated resources and people who can really construct the program and develop partnerships and relationships and steward those resources. So I would like to take a moment to talk about the Providing for Unhoused People with Pets Act. That's on the federal level. It was introduced to Congress this summer, and at this moment it is a bipartisan bill. It was introduced by Representative Jason Crow out of Colorado, and it is sort of slowly making its way through the legislative process, but we definitely need more co-sponsors from all over the country. And so I would really urge everyone to take a look at the Providing for Unhoused People with Pets Act. It's called the PUP Act for short. And what it would do is it would create a $5 million fund from fiscal year 2024 through 2028, and it would provide funding to any government agency and to any provider of emergency shelter or permanent supportive housing provider that applies and qualifies and is accepted. And it would fund the expansion of animal accommodations within your programs. The list of things that you can pay for with the grant money is pretty expansive. And so I think that this is something that really everyone in this room should be supporting. And I did bring cards with me to explain a little bit about what the PUP Act will do. So please do find me at lunch and take one of those cards for me.
Thank you, Christine. And thank you for your work on inclusive practices, and we certainly are supporting the PUP Act. So that's all the time that we have. I want to thank the panelists, each and every one of you, for this incredible conversation about the impact of animals on healing. If you all take one thing away from today's discussion, it's that pets are family, and that keeping families whole has a profound and healing impact on people. And so now just imagine if every person who entered the shelter system had the opportunity to heal alongside their pet, regardless of whether they're a survivor of domestic violence or a homeless family. That is a world that we want to live in. And URI will continue working with our partners, as I see you all today, to expand co-living in all of our shelters, and we look forward to working with you all. I encourage the audience to continue the conversation, take action, break barriers, and help people and animals live safely. Thank you.